Welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. Delighted to be back with you. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by our European team this season of Adrian, Clarke, Mark O'Hare, Miguel, Delaney. A good week last time out in the Champions League, so we're looking for more of the same with 4 games to preview in total. It's the round of 16 second legs. Before we get going, if you do like this video and subscribe completely for free to our YouTube channel, that's all we ask. And on the podcast, hit that 5-star review. And of course, check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. We are invariably best price on all selections when you look at the odds checker grid. The 4 games, incidentally: Bayern, Lazio, Sociedad versus PSG, Madrid, Leipzig, and Man City versus Copenhagen. We'll get straight into it and start with Bayern Munich at home to Lazio. What a big game this is. Bayern Munich 1.3, Lazio 11.5. The draw is 6.6. Both teams to score no favourite in this market, 188. The Asian handicap line sees Lazio get 1.75 goal head start at 188. The total for this game is 3.5. Mark O'Hare, over to you on this one. Bayern Munich this season, look, this is their whole season right here, this game.
It is, yeah. It's been a confusing campaign, a turbulent campaign, a forgettable campaign for the most part to be in this position in early March. They're well out of their comfort zone, really. It's fast sort of rewind a few weeks back to the first leg, and I wrongly assumed Bayern would turn up in Rome and flex their muscles as they tend to do in European football nights, because that's what we've come to expect. Quite often, Bayern have been sort of trailing a little bit, or perhaps not dominating the Bundesliga to the extent that people perhaps presume. In February, March, they normally sort of do a Man City and stride clear in later spring, but they always come to the party in the Champions League, and it wasn't the case in Rome. Failed to have a shot on target in a very poor performance. Obviously, fine margins. Harry Kane converts that great opportunity in the first half. It could have been a completely different game, but it wasn't. And since then, they've lost at Bochum, beaten Leipzig when probably second best in Munich with a last-minute goal, and then coughing up a lead against Freiburg on Friday night when they were very, very unimpressive again. So since then, we've obviously heard that Tuchel's departing. There seems to be a very uneasy atmosphere around the club and the playing staff too. And the team news coming into this midweek isn't exactly glowing either. Kim will probably start to centre half alongside either Eric Dyer or De Ligt, and neither of those two have covered themselves in glory this season. Upamecano is suspended. Fullback, you've got Mazraoui, Sarr and Boye all missing, so it might be Kimmich or Lima at right back again. So they are get-attable. Lazio should fancy their chances of at least getting on the score sheet here, but obviously their record away from Rome has been questionable, and Sarri has come in for a lot of criticism too. So last season, Lazio played quite a high press, played some good, attractive possession-based football too, but they kind of flipped the switch this time around, lost a few key players in the summer, and it's been sort of mixed success, really. More recently, Inter, Fiorentina and Atalanta have put them to the sword at home, playing some high-intensity football. They've already been beaten at Feyenoord, and Atletico weren't overly convincing at Celtic either, and the domestic record at the top 8 reads 5 defeats and 6. So I'd be surprised if Lazio do sort of stray from the same sort of rigid formation they stuck to in the first leg. They'll try and be robust and resilient, but it's going to be a tall order to try and keep Bayern out for 90 minutes. So I do expect them to have opportunities in the counter-attack, though. So, Lazio games are rarely high scoring, but I saw the goal line was set around 3, and I thought, if you're backing unders, you're in for a really sort of nail-biting night. You don't really want to be cheering on 0, 1 or 2 goals in a Bayern Munich match when they're sort of chasing the game. I looked at the handicap. It's about 1.75. It's a tall order then for Bayern to, in their current vein, to kind of beat this Lazio team by at least 2 goals, but 3 for a full payout there as well. So, nothing really took my fancy there. So I've kind of gone off-grid, really, gone into the bet builder. And I'm going to back Bayern Munich most corners and Lazio most booking points, which comes in at evens. I like this bet for a few reasons. Firstly, Bayern have won the corner count in every single home Bundesliga and Champions League game this season. They won the corner count in Rome quite convincingly too. So, that's that leg done and dusted, you expect. But Bayern actually won the card count 3-0 in Rome, surprisingly. Now, Lazio were actually odds-on favourites to win the card count in the first leg, despite playing at home. I think the likelihood of a repeat from the first leg is slim, because obviously Lazio are defending a lead away from home. They actually rank top in Serie A for most cards collected, 2.85 per game, whereas Bayern are 6th fewest in the Bundesliga at 188. But what I find quite interesting is the two leagues aren't actually that far apart in their average cards per game output. The Bundesliga 4.46, Serie A 4.61. So even allowing for the league differences, there is still a big chasm there between the two teams and their general cards output. And if you look at Lazio so far in the Champions League, small sample alerts, but 3 away days. They've collected 14 cards in trips to Celtic, Feyenoord and Atletico, quite comfortably winning the card count in all 3 occasions. So now they're sort of defending a 1-goal lead as big outsiders in Bayern Munich. I think that's a reasonable sort of shout to play here. Bayern will dominate possession territory, so that we should get a lot of opportunities for Lazio to time waste or just hack the Bayern players down to try and keep their Champions League hopes alive.
Okay, seems quite big. Yeah, Bet Builder on Matchbook Bet and Exchange available for our UK customers. Bayern most corners and Lazio most booking points around even money. Miguel, take it away on Bayern Munich, and maybe obviously from a UK audience, the Harry Kane saga. You look at him, and personally, he's had a great season, but I think last weekend's game just sort of summed up how the season has gone for both him and Bayern.
Yeah, he's scoring a lot, but the team isn't winning a lot, to sum it up, basically. And it's funny, that kind of feeds into a bit of a wider debate that's growing about Kane that I must say I personally feel is a bit unfair, which I suppose it was also a debate that kind of developed around Cristiano Ronaldo, I think with more fairness towards the end of his career, in that playing towards Kane can inhibit what a team can do. So basically you get more goals from one player, but it affects the rest of the goals and the rest of the team. And kind of maybe it constrains a side, makes them predictable. Now, I don't think that's the issue with Bayern, though. I think when you look at the team, the clear issue is actually defensive structure. Going back, I think there's, in some ways, actually, the decisive moments of their season might have been not getting Paulinho on the very last hours of deadline day in the summer. And I know they've gone for Eric Dyer since, to some, I suppose. Maybe unfair derision on him, but obviously he hasn't settled yet. It's kind of perpetuated an issue. And it all just, I think you could almost say as well, and this isn't reflective of Kane as a player, given he's such a guarantee of goals, such a good player, but that in going for a big expensive number 9 in the way they did was almost sort of the kind of almost drastic decision these big clubs make when they reach a certain point of dominance. Not that a complacency gets in, but it's almost like they kind of like they panic about doing more. And actually, I mentioned Ronaldo there earlier. The exact same happened to Juventus, where they got to a certain point in Serie A where they were easily dominating. And then it was like, well, let's try to go to the next level. Now, it was more extreme with Juventus and the signing of Ronaldo, especially what that did to the club's finances. But I do think there's a similar dynamic in how dominating for this long can just remove a club's sharp or erode a club's sharpness and bring a number of different issues together. And I think, and one of the things that's been mentioned about Bayern now, if you speak to people who are kind of now around the club, is, well, they have a lot of brilliant young talents. It isn't necessarily of the same personality of previous Bayern sides, particularly 2013 and the core that won the World Cup with Germany in 2014. And then that side, there was a remnant of that side in 2020. That kind of, they might have just been, I suppose, softened from winning so much. And all of this is combined together for a season. And just picking up on something Mark said there, about the kind of Man City run. I think what's been so striking about Bayern recently, and we said this actually going back to the group stage a few times, we actually said it in the build-up to the first leg, is throughout, because of the last decade, the instinct is always, well, look, Bayern have had a bad result. It's Bayern. They'll respond with something big. And that hasn't happened, actually. It's got worse. Now, at one point, the dam will break and there will be an unlucky team. That won't be to say that Bayern's issues will be fixed. It's more that there'll be eventually a game where all these things kind of come together in the right way and they really go for it. There is still a kind of a muscle memory there. And my sense is that this could be the game for that, primarily on just because of just how many bad results Bayern have had, but also that I think Lazio might be particularly susceptible opposition. Mark's mentioned how bad they are at travelling away from home. There's the pressure of the occasion. There's a difference between doing it in the first leg and having the chance to really seize the opportunity in the second leg. that can have an effect on teams. And then, of course, just going away to a big stadium in Europe, which Lazio team together don't have that much experience of. So I think it mightn't be kind of the commanding win like we saw Bayern, say, about a decade ago when they thrashed Sporting Lisbon 7-0 after losing the first leg. But I think it could be more erratic than that. But I still think just Bayern will outdo Sporting on goals scored. Simple as that. And
yeah. Bayern and over 2.5 goals, 185, combining those two for a backable price. It's actually for Miguel. Adrian, it's interesting, not to spend too long on the Harry Kane debate, but that comparison with Ronaldo, and then Miguel said he doesn't think that's the issue at Bayern, and I would tend to agree. But going forward, even looking at England in the summer, like it's a big few months for Harry Kane, I would say.
Oh, of course it is, yeah. But no, I don't buy into that at all. I think he's a terrific player, and the teams can absolutely be successful with him as the spearhead of the attack. Ronaldo was a little bit different because it was all channeled towards him and his style of play. At his age, I don't think that's the same with Ronaldo. With Kane, there are other great players there that probably need to step up to the mark as much as Kane has so far this season. Obviously, the issue with Tuchel is not helping Bayern moving forwards. That decision's been made, and it'd be fascinating to see whether that does derail them completely or whether there's a response. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines as Miguel in terms of the game. I think there'll be over 2.5 goals based on Bayern's need and urgency to get the early goal, to get themselves some confidence, to get themselves back in the tie. I think from Lazio's perspective, even though they are a counter-attacking team, their away record is so poor that I don't think they'll back themselves to sort of sit there and keep out Bayern Munich over 90 minutes. So I think in a way, I'm not saying attack is the best form of defense, but I think a little bit of bravery from their point of view will be seen as a strategy here, because you're up against a team that has been conceding goals, that has been structurally a bit of a mess under Tuchel. Why not ask them some questions? So I think Lazio will go for it to a point. They're not going to go gung-ho, but I think they will attack. So I think there'll be over 2.5 goals. There's been over 2.5 goals in 17 of Bayern Munich's last 20 matches at the Allianz Arena in all competitions. It's a stadium that's used to hosting goals. And despite their woes, Bayern almost always win there. I mean, they've won 4 of their last 5 at home in all comps. They've won 8 of their last 10 at home in all competitions, and they've won 12 of their last 15. So look, in the short term, in the medium term, in the longer term, even though we know this is a bit of a shadow of a Bayern side, they do normally get the job done at home. And I think their nous and their collective desire should be enough to get them over the line. I opposed them over in Rome. I was quite chuffed with that. I'm not opposing them on home turf, even though they've got this questionable form at the moment. So yeah, for me, Bayern and over 2.5 goals, sort of 1.85ish is the way in. That's the way I see it.
And you went against the might of Mark O'Hare and Miguel Delaney.
It's scary when you do that, Dan. Let me tell you. You doubt yourself.
Yeah, I can only imagine. We'll go majority rules here. Marginal call Bayern over 2.5 goals. Do really like the bet builder for Mark O'Hare. That's Bayern both corners and Lazio most booking points. Fun one to cheer on there. Even money on the Matchbook betting exchange using the bet builder. We'll move to the second game here. It's Real Sociedad versus PSG, 2-0 from the first leg. Sociedad 266 favourites here, marginal favourites. PSG 288, draw 3.55. That's the 90-minute money line prices. Both teams to score, yes, 182 favoured here. The Asian handicap is a draw no bet market. PSG 206, Sociedad 191. The total 2.5 under is 194. Miguel, take it away from you. The PSG game sort of didn't end up going results-wise how we sort of expected it. PSG to dig out of results. Are they genuine Champions League contenders this season?
I think they're only contenders insofar as that they're relatively competently set if City go out. I think again, like this entire season is framed by City again. I think they're a distance ahead of anyone really, bar potentially Madrid and Arsenal. Now we expected Bayern to be there, but they're nowhere close to we just discussed. Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, it's sort of kind of. I admit it actually a bit of double standard with this, but it's the irony of Paris Saint-Germain in that right now, because of I suppose a decade of waste, really, they've made this decision to change direction. I think go with something that people would think is best practice. Basically, start honing a squad that's built toward a specific tactical ideology. That's the way all the best run clubs do it, particularly to say Liverpool and Manchester City. But of course, that won't have immediate effect and takes time. And it theoretically makes them gives them less of a chance to win it last season, even though it's better in the long run. Whereas I suppose previously we all would have mocked kind of waste of PSG and the way they lost games, particularly in the Champions League, because of the way they played with all those stars. But on the flip side, the stars gave them an aura where there was always that sense, even though you didn't necessarily think they'd have enough to win it against the biggest teams, they could turn it on any given day. So it's almost kind of a short-term against long-term thing. Now, PSG, you can see something coming together under Luis Enrique. It still feels like it's a very callow squad. And I suppose it's just about kind of going out and kind of almost performing competently under him, which again is such a contrast to the PSG we've come to know. And it might be even further pronounced if, as expected, Mbappe leaves in the summer. And it's for all, I have to say, I wavered on this game a lot. I'm almost kind of doubting what I've picked here, where I've gone with the two boys, because I think this actually has the potential, from exactly what I'm saying and the way PSG are playing, I think this has the real potential to actually be under 2.5. And I was, as
you're back and forth on this one yourself.
Yeah, very back and forth. I think it's a hair's breadth from that, and so I think it's going to be one of those basically going to be decided by the nature of what the game is, which is a European second leg where Real Sociedad have to come out, and it is really one of those that's. I think that the tie will entirely be conditioned on when the first goal comes, if it comes at all. If it comes early, and I think there is a possibility of that given the callousness of this PSG side in Europe, I think then we could have a proper back and forth. If, say, it ticks past 20, 25 minutes, I think it's more likely to be to stay as a low-scoring game and one PSG can just about control. But I think just because of the nature of the night, my instinct is for this to open up, especially big game at Real Sociedad, the way it's taken off there at the club. And I think that will feed into the occasion. I think PSG will get through, but this could actually be a bit of this could be the game to watch, really.
Yeah. Adrian, pick it up from there. Over 2.5 goals, 2-0-2, and you're in agreement.
Yeah. I think the game state is really well set. I mean, the nonsense sort of term that 2-0 is a dangerous scoreline. I think it's historically been proven to be cobblers, really. But it feels like it might be quite a dangerous scoreline here because PSG have that advantage, but they've went. I can't get St James's Park out of my head, and that atmosphere, that sort of febrile environment where they really went at them. Newcastle, didn't they? And Real Sociedad in the first leg pressed amazingly. I think they forced 19 high turnovers inside the final third, which is a record in the game. They caused them a lot of problems. Risky, because they sort of left themselves 3v3 at the back. And ultimately, they blew up in the game and they made mistakes. They couldn't keep it going, Real Sociedad. Here, they've got to go for it, haven't they? They've got to see that as a potential weakness for PSG. They've got to say, let's rattle their cages. Let's make this hell on earth for them and see if we can get an early goal. And let's just tear at them. And if they do get it, it's going to be a heck of a game. And that's where I'm going with it. I think they have to go for it. We know about PSG, even though the situation with Mbappe is a bit weird at the moment. He got taken off at half-time at the weekend. It's an uneasy relationship with PSG. They've still got so much quality in forward departments that you think, well, if Sociedad do risk it and go with getting a press and have a highish line, that they'll just pick them off. So it could go one of both ways. We could end up with a 3-2 home win or something like that, or PSG could romp home. But I do think that there'll be goals. PSG might want to protect, but I think there'll be opportunities for them to go and break, because there's no point in Sociedad playing it cagey here. They've got to go for it. I know since that first leg, both teams to score has landed in all of the Sociedad games. And PSG have sort of been a little bit off it, haven't they, the last couple of games as well, which makes you think that Sociedad have a chance. But yeah, my instinct is that Sociedad will try and mimic what Newcastle did in the group stage. And given how PSG responded to that, they've got a chance.
Okay, yeah. Mark, pick it up from there. I do like that Newcastle example as a template for Real Sociedad here tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm not going to parrot everything that Adrian said, but full agreement. And his analysis of this game is how I see this fixture too. It's Real Sociedad's last hope of the season, really. They're a long way back in terms of the top 4 race in Spain. They were eliminated by the Copa del Rey last week in the semi-finals, which was desperately disappointing for them. So they're going to be putting absolutely everything into this match. A 2-goal comeback is probably unlikely, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. They will look back to what they did against both Benfica and Inter Milan here earlier in the campaign. They won well, outplayed both of those two teams. And at Anoeta, they'll have a full crowd behind them, a frenzied atmosphere. If they do score the first goal, anything can happen here. And they'll also look back to the first leg when I thought they were absolutely brilliant for the first hour or so. They only really sort of fell apart when the goal went in, and they really struggled to sort of sustain the energy that they put in that first hour or so. But they were brilliant beforehand. Now they get Oyarzabal back. That's almost a spiritual leader in forward areas. And they've been generating some good performance data for quite some time. Haven't really been getting the results they perhaps deserved, but they have scored and been scoring a couple of goals now since that first leg defeat. And they'll be playing a PSG team who are one of the overperformers defensively across Europe, not just in Ligue 1 this season. Quite remarkable, really. They've given up 0.88 goals per game this season, but give up 1.94 expected goals per game, which is an enormous overperformance. Just shows how important and how big Donnarumma has been between the sticks for them. He's literally been Superman at times to sort of keep the score down. They do play a cavalier style. They do play adventurous. We saw that at St. James's Park when Luis Enrique did a bizarre team selection and approach. I'm not expecting him to set PSG up defensively. It's not his way. He will stick to his principles, and that will be possession and forward thinking. So, I really like the look of over 2.5 goals here at odds against. I'm surprised it is. Just on PSG in the group stage, 7 goals conceded in 3 away games. Now, this really sort of blew my socks off, actually, too. It's almost 4 years since PSG kept a clean sheet on their travels in the Champions League. So, you look at the team news as well. There's no Kimpembe, there's no Skriniar. Marquinhos is a major doubt. Danilo is a doubt as well. So you could be without 4 big key performers in defensive areas too. On the flip side, an angry Kylian Mbappe, a PSG side, we should be afforded a bit more space and open spaces to play counter-attacking football in when possession is turned over. I'm hopeful Real Sociedad score the first goal and we could be in for a real thriller of a tie. But either way, I think over 2.5 goals odds against is the wrong price. It has to be odds on, surely.
Okay. Full house, over 2.5 goals, 2-0-2 from Mark, Adrian, and Miguel. We'll move on to Wednesday night's game, starting with the game that matters more, Real Madrid versus Leipzig, eagerly poised here at 1-0 Madrid. Madrid 161 favourites, Leipzig 5.9. The draw is 4.6. Both teams to score, heavily favoured 168. The Asian handicap line sees Leipzig get a 1-goal head start, and the goal line for this game is 3.5 unders, incidentally, 168. So, Adrian, kick off this game for us. Madrid, obviously, I'm sure you've seen the scenes at this stage post their game over the weekend. There'll be a lot of players here. I can picture a fast Madrid start just purely based on how that weekend game finished up.
You'll be pumped, aren't they? They're definitely going to be pumped up for it. It's Leipzig did great, really, in the first leg. They had to try and take advantage because Real Madrid were short, weren't they? Obviously, I think Bellingham was out and they didn't have that many fit first-choice defenders as well. And they did take the game to them and were pretty unlucky, I think, not to score. I think it was Sesko had a number of good chances that he spurned. The goalie was really good for Real Madrid, and then a moment of quality wins them the game. So Leipzig will take confidence, I think, from that. But the issue I have is that I think the Real Madrid team they'll encounter at the Bernabeu will be a lot better, a lot stronger in terms of the starting 11. Bellingham in behind the front of Vinicius and Rodrigo is a little bit scary, and especially on home soil. And a lot of the other big guns seem to be fit and available from what I gather. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard for Leipzig to get anything out of the game. They've got to show ambition. If they can be as creative as they were in that first leg, they've got a chance, haven't they, of scoring goals in the game. They got 2 against City at the Etihad, remember? So they're capable, but can they outscore Real Madrid at the Bernabeu? I'm not convinced about that. So yeah, my pick is Real Madrid and over 1.5 goals. It's landed in 12 of 17 home games in all competitions this season. Obviously, Real Madrid have won every game in the Champions League as well this season. So if you think Real Madrid are going to win the game, it's unlikely to be 1-0, I think, given what Leipzig need to do, given the firepower, given the style clash, two pretty attacking teams. Both teams to score, by the way, has landed in Leipzig's last 9 away games. I don't think many people are giving them much chance of keeping a clean sheet here. And since that loss to Sheriff, do you remember that? Real Madrid lost at home to Sheriff in 2021. The only teams to have escaped defeat away to Real Madrid have been Chelsea and Manchester City. So I think Real Madrid will win the game, and I don't think it'll be 1-0. So yeah, that's my pick here.
Okay, over 1.5 goals, coupled with Madrid win 183. Mark, you've gone for a match result in both teams to score selection here. I remember when these markets first appeared, maybe 7-8 years ago, bigger prices, it seemed like a long way away. But given how the goal output's gone up, definitely in the Premier League over the last couple of seasons, they're becoming more and more regularly. Have the market sort of copped on, or because you're selecting a lot of these, it seems there's still a bit of juice in a lot of these prices? We had 2 winners, for example, the Premier League, Villa, both teams to score yes, and City, both teams to score yes.
I'm led by price, really, and I think football has evolved quite a lot in the last decade or so, from, let's say, the Jose Mourinho era. The likes of Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp in English football have led a revolution, really, and as we've seen, the Premier League goals per game output has increased enormously, especially this season. It's the highest scoring league in Europe, alongside the Bundesliga, and I think that's kind of carried through to European football too. There was a time when sort of knockout ties were sort of, I wouldn't say they were dull and boring, but there was very, very few sort of games escalating into high-scoring shootouts, whereas I wouldn't say it's the norm, but it's very much more in vogue in this season or this year, really, than previous campaigns. And you've got to treat each game on its own merits, and I think Adrian's already put a nice kind of foundation here, and I'll just kind of increase my thoughts here, because I think there's absolutely goals in this game. Leipzig obviously have to go for it, but their away record this season is sketchy at best, really. If you look at their matches against the top teams in the Bundesliga, they did win at Dortmund, but they've lost at Bayern, Leverkusen and Stuttgart. They did score 8 goals across those 4 games. As a 3-2 defeat, a 2-1 loss, a 5-2 loss, and a 3-2 victory. They've been to Man City in the group stage. They lost 3-2. Hosted City, lost 3-1. Hosted Real Madrid. That's the one that kind of goes against the grain, really. But they really should and have been allowed that goal in the first half. And then suddenly you get a completely different game between the 2 teams in the first leg. But their 3 Champions League away days produced 12 goals. They've not kept a clean sheet in 13 away across all comps. Going forward, I've absolutely no qualms with what they've got available. They've got some real players of promise who can change a game in an instant, score goals at will. Defensively, they're just so easy to play against if an opposition side puts their foot down, really. And I think Real Madrid will be tested in this match. But I don't normally like backing a team who's already won a first leg, but because the tie is still quite in the balance, so to speak, I'm quite happy to be with Real Madrid. And just my original play here was over 2.5 goals and BTTS at 183. It just made sense to back the 3.0. Massive increase if you think Real Madrid are going to be the winners if it's a 3-goal game or more. I'm basically only kind of ruling out a 2-1 Leipzig win or a 2-2 draw. So I think the increase is absolutely warranted here. Leipzig will be pretty much full strength in their attacking areas. Real Madrid still missing a couple of key cogs in defensive areas, Courtois, Alaba, but going forward, Bellingham's back, Vinny Jr., Rodrigo. they should score at least twice, possibly more, against this Leipzig team who will be going all out to get back into the tie. But yeah, I think Leipzig absolutely can score here too. So 3.0, just being led by the price here. I think it happens more than just a 33% shot.
Okay, Miguel, you're in agreement.
Yeah, completely. Just with the way both teams play, I think it's very much a follow-on from the first leg in that sense, which was an open game. I think we were all surprised. Maybe it wasn't higher scoring given what we went for, and I think this could well take that. Just by sheer force of numbers, we could see a high goal. And exactly what the lads have said as well. I think Madrid will be picking up from where they were at the weekend. Albeit a night where they have opportunities themselves, this could be a very testing evening for Leipzig. I think it actually could be one of those where Madrid might just assert their superiority, and by the end of the game, we're talking about them maybe going into the quarterfinals as a Madrid that's potentially rising again to maybe win this competition.
Yeah, next week's quarterfinal draw will be fascinating, particularly if some of the big guns like Madrid and Bayern perform well this week. We're going to lock in Madrid, both teams to score. Big price, 3.0, and majority rules with Mark and Miguel. Adrian selection, if you want a safe one, lock it in over 1.5 goals, 183. Final game is Manchester City versus Copenhagen. We've only got one selection here. It's going to be the Adrian Clarke show for the next 3 or 4 minutes, considering he's gone to the Europa League as well. So it's Man City 116, Favs, Copenhagen 22.0 if you fancy them. Draw is 10.0, both teams to score. No 171 favourite in that market. The Asian handicap is 2.25 goal head start for Copenhagen at exactly even money. The goal line 3.5. Adrian Clarke, take it away.
What are the boys stepping aside for? Come on.
They're just doing a 3-game show this week.
City in Europe in a game where they've won, isn't it? Like it's one of those where basically City could just turn up and just destroy Copenhagen if they fancy it. But as we've actually seen in a few of these games, they sometimes the way it goes, they just accept the draw, and it's almost like declaring. I mean, it's sort of like for a. I know this has actually come up a lot in discussion the last few weeks, but for a last 16-second leg, this is like this. It doesn't exactly have the thrill of European football. This one, does it? Dead rubber, basically.
I'm gonna let Adrian put his case across, and whilst I haven't got an official pick, I'll happily stick my hand up and oppose him with the alternative view, if you like to. Just to be
there you go, Adrian. So not only are they not putting up a bet, they're going against your bet. So
yeah, incredible scenes. Look, I know City, they're prone, aren't they, to concede the odd goal at the moment. You know, I did it at the weekend, and there haven't been as many clean sheets at the Etihad as you would expect. But I think they can get one here. I think they'll just kill the game. I think it'll be pretty boring. Routine, professional win. I don't think they'll declare. I don't think that's really their way. I think they'll just look to win the game with the minimum of fuss, efficiently, not expanding too much energy. So I'm going for Man City to win 2-0, basically. Man City and BTTS, no. 5 of City's last 7 home games in the Champions League have been 1-0. So it's something that they're capable of doing. Leipzig and Red Star were the exceptions. They didn't really offer that much, Copenhagen, in Denmark, did they? I think that they scored with their only shot on target, only 4 shots overall. It was very one-way traffic, really. Copenhagen blanked at Old Trafford. They blanked at Bayern Munich. 2 teams that have had their troubles this season. They didn't, they were competitive in both games, but didn't score. So yeah, I just think they'll take control here, and basically not give Copenhagen a sniff. And look, if you think about it from a Copenhagen angle, are their hearts really in this? Does anyone at Copenhagen believe they can overturn this advantage? I don't think so. So yeah, I think their hearts might have been broken, and that this will be as routine as it gets. There you go. What's Mark going to say?
What is Mark going to say?
What is Mark going to say? This is not the priority for Man City. They've already qualified. We know that. It's a foregone conclusion, effectively. The big priority is Sunday. They're going to Anfield. So I do think they'll be looking to try and declare and get out of this match as soon as possible. It's an inconvenience for them. They've no interest in playing this game. Pep Guardiola, I'd be shocked if he plays a first 11 or at least the best players are on the pitch after the hour mark, because there's a title-defining match, if you like, at the weekend. So, Copenhagen were blanked at United, but they missed a penalty, missed other opportunities, blanked against Bayern in Munich, but again, created some good opportunities, but just a little bit unlucky on that day. And look, City aren't exactly renowned for the clean sheet record this season either. So I actually did look at 2.38 at BTTS. I thought that was a big price considering City will be kind of having their heads elsewhere. But yeah, it's a no bet game for me. It's a pretty grisly betting heat. So I'll be cheering Adrian on.
Well, thank God for Adrian. Well, thank God for Adrian. Could be the first ever no bet match we've ever previewed on the Matchbook Football Podcast. So
I hope you're deducting this from their fees. This is outrageous.
25%. Yeah, 100% I am. City both to score now 186. Adrian has selected there. I think they will go strong instantly to get the game done. Like Haaland and Foden would definitely
go strong in the Carabao Cup, for goodness sake.
Yeah, there's no way he'll start a strong team, 100%. But yeah, they might declare early on and both teams to score. Yes, could come in. So we'll see. Europa bets. Incidentally, all bets are recapped on insights.matchbook.com. Adrian, you have a selection here and against a Premier League team.
Well, I was asked to put up a selection. I put up a selection.
MVP of the podcast, Adrian.
Just kidding. Look, I looked at the card for the Europa League and straight away I just thought Roma at home to Brighton. It's really stood out. 2.22 on Roma at home to the Seagulls in that first leg. They're revitalised, aren't they, under Daniel Hussey? The feel-good factor is definitely back. They've won 6 of 7. They've been scoring a lot of goals. Dybala, Pellegrini, Paredes have all been in decent form. I think the Olympico is going to be pretty rocking for the game. And look, it's a big old step. Not into the unknown because they've been there in the group stage, but the knockouts are different. And I think that Brighton go into the game definitely below par, don't they? I mean, they're not in good nick at the moment, Brighton. You never know what you're going to get with them. That is the truth, and maybe that's something to do with the price. Because if they bring their A game, they can trouble anyone, can't they? But yeah, I mean, they didn't play very well at the weekend against Fulham. They've lost 4 of their last 5 away games. Of Brighton and Hove Albion. And they're still missing so many good players. I mean, the 2 that really stand out are Mitoma and Joao Pedro. And look, if those 2 are available, I might not be back in Roma here, but they're not in the team. They're not going to travel. So yeah, I think I expected Roma to be much shorter at home to Brighton. I guess maybe it's the Premier League tax, that in terms of Premier League teams are rated so highly across Europe. That's why maybe Brighton are so short here. But yeah, I think Roma should be strong favourites to see off a depleted Brighton in this first leg. Okay,
2.22. Adrian reckons you're getting an artificially bigger price on Roma here on Thursday. And we'll move on to our long shots. And we have the long shots record for the season. This is Champions League podcast only. 7 wins and 15 defeats. If you had a £20 stake on each of the guys' selections, including 2% commission, you will be up over 500 quid. So quite extraordinary run of results. Miguel, started off here with your pick for the long shot section.
Just taking up everything we said earlier and the following on the idea of when this Bayern release is coming. I know I have had this good feeling a while. Some of those good feelings have worked out. But Bayern, it just feels there's going to be a release at some point. Now, that isn't to say their problems this season will be solved. Like the problems could well come back, say comparable to Liverpool last season when they beat Manchester United 7-0 and immediately reverted, as they're going through transition. It's different at Bayern, but there's going to be a build-up at some point. And with all the little ingredients coming together in this game, I was actually looking to see whether 5-0 actually wasn't on one. So I thought I'd go Bayern over 4.5. I think this could be one where they get ahead and they take out a lot of frustration on Lazio.
Okay. Yeah, Bayern over 4.5 goals, 5.0. That's a goal line, Adrian Clarke, isn't it? That's a proper. That's a proper.
Ballsy, isn't it? Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Bayern over 4.5, currently around 5.0. Incidentally, Mark, you're putting all your eggs in this Anfield game on Sunday. It must be quite a big game.
Apparently, a big game for you boys as well.
On the draw.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, I've got little statistical evidence to back this one up, bar what we know, which is Liverpool have got a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of youngsters filling the void. They were much weaker at Nottingham Forest at the weekend than I thought they would be. Looked at the midfield before the game, as very surprised, but they managed to sort of scrape through with that controversial late winner, but quite fortunate really to get the 3 points on the balance of play at the City ground. So, yeah, I mean, that's a tipping point. But to me, the big tipping point here is the schedule. This match being in Prague on Sunday, on Thursday, ahead of the game on Sunday against Man City. Of course, Jurgen Klopp wants to sign off with the quad, but the priority is the Premier League, and the priority will be Sunday's game against Man City, which, as I said, is title defining for both teams, really. Liverpool have already played Arsenal home and away, so this is their hardest final league game of the season. So I'm expecting all of the big boys, if they're anything but 100%, to be sort of left in reserve for that game on the weekend, really. I'd be stunned if he goes with a strong side. I think Liverpool will absolutely back themselves to overcome any first leg deficit if they did suffer a first leg defeat in Prague. And I don't sort of dismiss Liverpool lightly, but I think Sparta Prague do deserve a bit of credit here too. They've already downed Galatasaray and Betis at home. They're no mugs, really. So I think 4.1 at home against the Liverpool side, perhaps with their eyes elsewhere and without a first choice 11, looks achievable. Liverpool have already stuttered a couple of times in this competition away from home this season. So why not again? Again, I just need to emphasise that point, really. I think Liverpool would take a defeat, even if it's a 1-goal defeat, because they know they'd be able to turn it around at Anfield.
Yeah, whether you agree with that selection or not, you can definitely see that price going off a lot shorter when team news does come in Wednesday all the way up until Thursday kickoff. Adrian, take it away. It's a game we've covered in the Champions League.
Yeah, I'm revisiting Sociedad against PSG here. How about Real Sociedad to win and both teams to score? Obviously, they're chasing it. They're 2-0 down. We talked about them trying to do a Newcastle, trying to really get in their faces, press with ferocious intensity, forcing, turnover after turnover, and basically just, testing PSG's mettle away from home, which obviously was lacking on Tyneside, wasn't it? So, and we know there's a little bit of a strange situation there with Mbappe in his future, kind of unknown at the minute. So yeah, I think it's a scenario that could play out. Luis Enrique, incidentally, has lost 3 of his previous 5 games away at Sociedad. So it's a bogey ground for Luis Enrique when you consider the teams that he's been in charge of. And PSG, actually, going into the second leg of Champions League games, this is an interesting stat. They've gone into, this is the 10th time PSG have gone into the second leg of a Champions League knockout stage game ahead on aggregate. But they've been eliminated in 4 of those occasions. So leading in the first leg is not a guarantee where PSG are concerned. They've had a habit down the years of blowing up in second leg. So yeah, why not? It's a fun one, isn't it? Both teams to score. We know Sociedad have got to go for it. PSG have got all the star forwards that can score too. So yeah, I think I can see a 2-1, a 3-1, a 3-2 here in the second leg, and the price is decent.
Okay, let's lock that in. It is Real Sociedad and both teams to score. Yes, in our long shot sections. On to best bets, and we'll run through these fairly quick because we've covered them earlier in the show. But Mark O'Hare, your best bet on the card.
Over 2.5 goals, Real Sociedad versus PSG. Adrian's already done my reasoning for me, really, but PSG haven't kept a clean sheet away from home in the Champions League for almost 4 years. No side is overperforming defensively as much as Paris across Europe's top 5 leagues. So, also you just can't really deny their firepower. And I think Real Sociedad will bring the noise for this game. It's their sort of last great hope of the campaign so far, and they'll be backed by a very good crowd at Anoeta. So yeah, I think odds against is the wrong price. They should be going off odds on.
Okay, you've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting, Adrian, on this podcast. Final word to you on the best bets.
Real Madrid and over 1.5 goals for me. It's Real Madrid at home in the Champions League. It's the Bernabeu. Since that defeat to Sheriff in 2021, only Chelsea and Manchester City have avoided defeat in the Spanish capital. I think they've got the tools to dismantle Leipzig, but Leipzig will bring a goal threat of their own, and they're motivated to come and score goals, but they have to score goals if they've got any chance. So I think there'll definitely be over 1.5 goals. And look, it's Real Madrid, so pair the two, and it comes out at 1.83.
Okay, and Miguel, you're dropping your long shot goal line by 2 to get a investment in here.
Well, it's just because even I think this selection even allows the possibility, and I would say it's a slim possibility that well, not slim, but it allows the possibility that Lazio themselves, benefit from Bayern's porousness at the back, as so many Bundesliga clubs have done lately. But I think this it covers obviously a few eventualities, and again, following on from what we said about the nature of these second legs and the game states of these second legs, I do think this will open up, and it covers everything basically, bar a narrow win either way, which I think is very unlikely in the circumstances, for all sorts of reasons, from Lazio's travel to Bayern playing at home in a big European game, to the willingness, to the need to win, and how kind of Bayern going out early could bring an early goal. And from that, it just feels like this is actually a relatively comfortable price for a game, I think, that is set up to open up.
Okay, yeah, Bayern over 2.5 goals. Miguel expecting response 185. Before we go, we had a fun comment on Twitter, obviously known as X now. One good thing Elon Musk has done to Twitter is reintroduce comments on our live stream. So we do stream there in the afternoons. So do check that out. If the lads had a free treble on the outright winners in the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League, who would they pick, Mark? I mean, he's not asking for much there, is he?
It's a pretty dull, but I think the favs in all three competitions are fair enough, really. Premier League treble of City, Liverpool, Villa, City, and I think Villa are quite comfortably the strongest sides in their competition. The Europa League is an interesting one. Liverpool obviously have a title race to keep their eyes on, but Leverkusen are probably the other team who you want to have a look at there. And at the moment, it looks like they might be getting the Bundesliga title decided early doors, which would allow them to put more focus on the Europa League. But right now, I think the three English teams form. I think before the draw was made, they're about a 50-1 treble. But that's been sliced and diced quite significantly in the last few weeks. So I'd still probably be with that three.
Arsenal, Leverkusen, Villa.
Yes, Adrian.
It's a romantic choice, right?
Your answer would be Arsenal, and Arsenal.
Look, it's the treble we all want, right? Come on. Yeah.
Correct. Miguel, any thoughts?
I mean, it's European football is odd this season, I think, just from the perspective of it feels increasingly stratified, as we've been talking about with the Champions League. And yet within that, there have been just a few spikes. And actually, I think this is, and this is maybe a very interesting market that will follow on from this season, which is basically, I think this is going to be the busiest summer in years for not just a pursuit of managers, as we discussed before, but also sporting directors. And a lot of that is going to be decided over the next few weeks and how these competitions go. I mean, even if you look at the Alonso situation, say, like for the past few years in Germany, the way it's gone, sometimes, like say with Klopp, Liverpool hired him because he actually beat Bayern to a title. With managers in Germany recently, no one can get as far as beating Bayern, so it's been about actually challenging. Whereas Alonso could completely supersede that, as well as do so much more. I think that would be. I mean, you're probably talking about actually, if that happens, especially in the context of kind of where football is and where we've spoken about City, something comparable to say, Aberdeen in the 80s with Ferguson, and maybe even not quite to winning the Champions League with Porto, but what Mourinho did in 2003, winning the Europa League, or UEFA Cup was at the time, and the league, and just kind of breaking the mold in that way. And it's very interesting. It's going to influence a lot more than this season.
Okay, a lot to take from there. Listen, insights on matchbook.com, full recap of the guys' selections, and thanks as always for your comments. Do add to the show as well. We'll be back on Thursday, myself, Mark, and Adrian, to preview what is potentially the biggest Sunday of the season, not just for the Premier League title race, but also for the top four as well. But until then, we will chat to you on Thursday. Enjoy the weekend, or enjoy the week's Champions League action. Bye-bye.